I want to set the record straight and pop the bubble right here and right now. Most relationships suck behind the scenes, and we're going to dive into a really, really big reason as to why.
The sneaky why that not a lot of people talk about, but the obvious data shows your relationship will fail if you are not paying attention to this.
Hey, everybody, it's Bianca.
Welcome back, Evolvers. It's Emilia. We are going to talk about relationship failure. What is more exciting than that? So, you're not alone if your relationship right now is failing. So, I just want to start there and extend the empathy.
You're also not alone if that's one of the biggest fears that you have, because you might be single and concerned about getting into a relationship and having it fail. Your relationship might be okay right now, but you have a fear that it's going to potentially fail. So, no matter what your relationship status currently is or the status of your intimate relationship, this will still benefit you no matter what.
Facts. So I'm going to share a client story as we like to do here because we know that they're super helpful for our listeners when it comes to real life examples because Bianca and I are two women, yes, who go through life and we share our personal experiences as well. And what we've heard from listeners is that hearing what other people are going through, obviously keeping things confidential and private, is really helpful, right? We can see ourselves in the stories and in the shows of other individuals. So I'm going to introduce Chloe. Chloe obviously isn't this person's name, but to keep it private, this is Chloe. And so Chloe, she's in her mid 30s and she is coming to a session saying, Emilia, I like you can see it all over. She is so burnt out, Bianca. She is just like existing. And she's pulling on her blanket and she's just, trying to exist in this little safe bubble of an hour that she and I have together in session. And I am really grateful to be able to hold that space for her as we do with so many individuals. And she's pulling up her blanket and just like wrapping herself in it. And you can tell this is just like the one space that she has where she doesn't have to worry about being anything other than herself. And that's just so worthy of celebration when it comes to her making sure that she's investing in herself to be able to have that space. And Chloe is a mother of a child and she's now expecting or baby number 2. And she's talking to me about just how exhausted she is. And of course, when you're in your first trimester, second trimester, third trimester, things change in the female brain, in the body, etc. And everyone has a different pregnancy experience, if you will. But she's talking to me and I'm noticing some of the data not necessarily mapping with quote unquote normal patterns of gestational and first, second, third trimester kind of patterns. And I say, Chloe, what's going on? I'm noticing, the presenting obvious signs of burnout, right? And obviously to anyone else, they would just chalk it up to like, oh, well, you have a toddler, you're going through a pregnancy, like obviously you're going to get burnt out. But the obvious signs to me were obviously a honed in eye for something that's very specific, this sneaky reason why relationship fails. And she's in a relationship and she, I start kind of asking about the relationship dynamic with her partnership and paraphrasing Bianca, but she's like, I feel like I barely ever have time for myself and it's just been a lot. I'm working a full-time job and, it's great. Love my job, love what I do. And then I come home, late at night. And by the time I'm done with work, I'm, having to put our child, get him ready for bed and, do all the things that are getting household child ready for bed while also making sure that the food's on the table, while making sure that the house is cleaned up, like doing pretty much everything in her household. And I'm just sitting there like dying inside because did I not just say she is a mother of one and has another one on the way? And I'm not hearing anything coming from a standpoint of I got to I'm coming home from work, I'm having a really healthy, walking routine that I'm in, and I'm able to, kind of sit and put my feet up and, get to talk to my partner, and then we have dinner and he helps me out with bedtime and everything like that. I'm not hearing any of that. Instead, I hear quite the opposite. No involvement from her partner. If anything, it's more of an expectation that just now is running within the household. And when I look at that, when I hear that, it makes me think of all the women. And I cannot say that I've heard men in this situation, right? Obviously, men can't currently get pregnant by the time we're releasing this episode. But the essence is, this narrative that I keep hearing not only come from her, but women, whether they have children or not, which is they're overwhelmed, they're burnt out, they don't even have time to go and exercise for themselves, they barely eat, and they barely get sleep, and wildly overburdened with the quote unquote household chores. Now, obviously, this example, Bianca, I'm talking about is the division of household labor, which is not necessarily the sneaky reason why relationships fail. However, what I want to bring in this episode is one thing that I see coaching couples and individuals who are in a relationship all the time is the wild or inaccuracies when it comes to our perception in a relationship of the load, if you will, in a relationship versus the reality. And so I got sharing with her and I say, would you be interested, after we went through the session and confirmed all of my thoughts around how this partner is not doing anything and kind of falling back into his own ways? Like, would you be interested in me sharing a digital asset that Alan and I have created to help partners really understand the load that you're carrying? Because he obviously has no idea. You don't know how to communicate it because you're burnt out. And she's like, yeah. And my concern is that they're never actually going to go through that activity sheet. They're never actually going to get the data in their households because she literally does not have energy to even make sure she gets enough food and sleep. How the heck is she going to have energy to then go through a worksheet that actually helps to call forward the sneaky reason why this relationship has a lot of challenge, and how the slow breakdown is happening, which is there's not an equal belief on how important each other's time is. So what I'm fleshing out is relationships fail from a very sneaky standpoint, from a belief that essentially does not see each person's time equally. Meaning, in this context, right, the division of labor is a byproduct in the inequitable distribution of household labor, child labor, cognitive load, etc., is a belief that's within his head that women's time is less important than men's, and a male's time is more important than a female's. It's very subconscious. No one would ever admit to that. And as that plays out, that means that in their household, it's more important for him to play a video game than it is to help with all the cognitive tasks, all the physical tasks, and all the small little things that this woman is keeping in her brain, is having her be focused on, and is ultimately burning her out. And so I see you seething. But that's really what it comes down to. The sneaky reason why relationships fail, and I see this time and time again, is because there's not a belief that two human beings' times are of equal value. And this is something that is studied, and we had mentioned it. Alan and I did a whole relationship talks event about this, and the research is wild, and I'm happy to get into that, Bianca, because I know you have questions. But that's what it comes down to, is a belief that one partner's time is more valuable and important than the other person's time. And it's just like, oh, what? But that's far more common than we think.
It's not only that one person's time is more valuable than the other, but there's two other things underlying here that I know you know, but our listeners might not be picking up on. Not because I believe you're ignorant, but because a lot of people don't see this.
Yeah.
Number one, she's clearly afraid of him. She's afraid to bring things up. She's afraid to ask for things. She's afraid to go up to him and express concern. She's afraid to go up to him and bring him this worksheet. I don't know this person. I bet, I would put money on it that she is afraid of him, because anytime she tries to bring up something, he probably blows up. Number two, there are very, very obvious gender norm beliefs that are happening here. You're the woman. A woman is supposed to do that. I'm the man. Therefore, I'm not obligated and or required to do that. Here's a question that I have for you, because I heard this on a video somewhere and I didn't listen to the full video because I wanted to punch the guy in the face, and the girl in there too. There was a girl advocating for this too.
Yeah.
I saw this video and this one woman was saying similar to what we are saying. If we are both working, and this is talking about heteronormative relationships, if you are in a gay relationship, there typically is like gender norms in there too, based on who has more of the masculine versus feminine energy. I've seen it in gay relationships too, whether it's man, man, female, female, all of the alphabet, part of the alphabet. But we're talking about heteronormative relationships as of right now. So in this video, the woman was saying, why should I have to go to work the same amount of time that you are, assuming we are both contributing equally to this relationship financially? And yet when I come home, I am still required to cook and clean and do all of these other things. And the guy and this other woman that was there kind of also agreed and said, because if other things were happening that required manual labor, or some of the other more masculine requirements were to happen, I would be required to take care of that. I don't expect you to do that. So you're not going to expect me to come do these other things. And I was like, that's the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my life. Because what's the probability that you're going to need to put up a wall or like protect her from a grizzly bear or whatever the fuck people love saying of like just the breakdown of gender stereotypes.
Yeah.
Now, there is a difference if both people come into the relationship with a shared understanding and a mutual agreement upon values regarding, we want a more old-fashioned, gender stereotyped. Emilia, your micro expressions are hilarious.
Oh my God.
If both people come in with the shared understanding that we want a more traditional relationship structure where the woman stays home,
AKA sexist and misogynistic, but I mean, I digress.
And works less and contributes more to the household, and the man is the more provider, caregiver. If you both come into the provider, not caregiver, provider. If you both have a shared agreement that that is what you value and that is what you want, that's different. And if you both mutually agree upon the fact, but when you enter into a relationship where that is not explicitly said, and then all of a sudden, later on down the line, it becomes evident that there's these gender biases, and more often than not, those types of relationships, the woman typically feels inferior, so she won't say anything. And she's reliant on this man emotionally and psychologically. There is going to be that issue. And she will continuously bring things up, and she will get ignored or yelled at or whatever. And then she doesn't say anything. And then she ends up being a single mother in a relationship, which I heard a video talking about that and my jaw hit the floor. This woman was saying, I am a single mother, yet I'm married. And everyone in the room was like,
Yeah.
oh shit. That happens so often. And that's exactly what's happening to your client. She is a
Mm-hmm.
single mother in a relationship. I guarantee the relationship is terrible. I guarantee she's probably being emotionally or mentally or even sexually abused.
Mm-hmm.
I guarantee that he's doing nothing and the children are being harmed by him in one way, shape, or form. I guarantee it. And your face is validating that. Like this isn't surprising. This
No,
isn't
it's
surprising.
statistics, actually, unfortunately.
This is stats. Women are not, and this happens with men too. We're not just men shaming. We do a lot of episodes talking about how men abuse women too. So this isn't to say all men are trash and whatever, because we don't believe that. Mm-hmm. However, there are a lot of circumstances where women are still being abused and harmed and treated as less than because these ignorant men have these beliefs that women are inferior to men and I'm not going to cook and clean because that's a woman's job. It's like, all right, but what would you be doing if she wasn't there?
Hi everyone, my name is JC DaCosta and I just wanted to tell you a little bit about Evolve Ventures and to let you know that it is a community where you can be your authentic self. I personally have experienced a place where I can tell my story and know that I'll find somebody who has shared a similar experience. It's a community of empathy, of leadership, of growth, of opportunity, and it's just a phenomenal community with budding and growing leaders who have a voice, and it's a forum and a platform. All of this good conversation, and it's meaningful conversation. So I am grateful for Evolve Ventures and its leadership, and thank you so much for listening to my spot. Take care.
Yes, and that's what's interesting because gender norms are such a byproduct of just so much brainwashing and colonialism,
stupidity
and we won't
bullshit.
go there. I mean, when we really look at like different cultures, it's wild how much we've been brainwashed into quote unquote a traditional gender. But like, here's the thing: like the sneaky reasons again why relationships fails is because the core of this is like there's not in it like people get into a relationship, but and I mean I've done this work with many different couples. There's not. I mean, statistically speaking, there's not an explicit agreement about a shared belief that our time is equal, or there's an explicit belief that's unearthed and expressed of, hey, I actually don't believe that your time is more valuable than mine. So therefore, like whatever my time is invested in, it's actually more important than yours. So can we just like have a conversation around that? Because like that just doesn't happen. What ends up happening is that these beliefs about each other's time, and that's informed by gender roles, most likely in our perceptions of value and intrinsic, extrinsic value within a relationship. It's really, really fascinating. And, you know, one of the things that you said earlier in that was the difference between, there's a couple of dynamics coming in play. This example, and I have many of Chloe's that I see. So it's interesting because of the fact that where we are in history right now, there's never been more progress in this arena. So I do want to highlight the fact that there's never been more progress in this arena of people being aware of gender roles. As a matter of fact, the generations right now between 18 and 24, young adults are actually way more cognizant of these quote unquote stereotypical gender roles playing out in terms of the belief systems within the dynamics at play of relationships. And young adults, statistically speaking, are more open to rewiring the quote unquote sins of the past. And like you said, if that person's not there in a household, not having a big deal, like not throwing a stink, right? Because if you lived alone, you would take care of this stuff, right? Like just that's a general
you go to your mom's house and they would do it for you, which happens so often. You end up being just a mama's boy and your mom still takes care of it.
Or like, you know, women are not out of this. It's a whole conversation. But something that, you know, so I do want to put that we're better than we ever have been before. And we now have more of the stats than we've ever been able to have explicitly yelling at us in front of our face. And why that's important from my perspective when it comes to this conversation is heteronormative relationships versus, well, let's just say same-sex relationship versus non-same-sex relationships. Same-sex relationships, that's one thing that comes into the fold. They have more egalitarian, speaking from the stats, more egalitarian roles in a household or in a relationship, which doesn't just include the behaviors of the tasks. So like, for example, like let's say cooking dinner or taking out the trash, right? It's not just that there's an actual better distribution on. There is a better distribution, not just in their perception and their belief, but also in the reality of the cognitive labor that is involved with what should we cook for dinner? At what time should we start putting in the chicken in the air fryer or whatever? Like all of that, there's a better distribution from the perception and in the reality. So I think that that's fascinating. The other thing that I want to pull into the fold is something that you mentioned earlier. So to that end, why am I working just like you? Why am I then having to come home and do have this expectation, even though we have an equal earning, quote unquote, potential, we have an equal earning jobs? Why is there this unconscious expectation that like I am now just kind of boxed into? Many people, quote unquote, start where they feel like it's fair or equal, but yet the reality and the data actually shows that women end up doing 2.5 more hours per week in terms of caregiving, household chores, cognitive labor, and tasks, even though there are equal earning marriages or relationships. And one of the events that we had done, Bianca, that was really fascinating that I want to pull in, the documentary called Fair Play. Highly recommend it to anyone who this episode is speaking to, where it really did showcase how the fact that when you were like, if you were to interview a couple and ask them like who does more work in the household or more chores or whatever the label is, 59% of women say that they do more, right? But men will think that they do more or that it's about equal, when in reality, 71%, at least 71%, just on food prep daily is done by women. 34.6, I believe, percent is done more by women in cleaning. And then on household work, like I said, right, 2.5 hours per week, but this is actually 2.7 times more than men. So although the perception is that it's equal or about the same, the reality shows such a different story. And I think that that's really important to call out, because of the fact that you could be equal earning household income, you could all this stuff, quote unquote, equal, but like it's not just about the task, it's about the cognitive labor. And this is what the documentary I talked about, which was surveyed over 500 couples. It really sussed out like the cognitive labor that's just outside of the actual tasks of the distribution of quote unquote labor, which it is labor, that actually leads to more physical ailments in women, more rates of insomnia, stress-related illnesses, autoimmune diseases, cancer diagnosis, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. So not only is it like killing the relationship, but it's actually killing the people in the relationship. So where I want to bring this, I mean, we can continue to go into the data on this, but what I think I want to bring in some hope here, right? Like, because we will have listeners listening to this and it will be like, oh, fuck. I probably have a perception, but here's the thing. You're going to have a cognitive distortion that says, oh, that's other couples, but that's not us. That's an actual cognitive distortion that your brain will go into to try to prevent you from actually seeing the mirror of what this episode is talking about and how your relationship is not failing or pointed towards failure. Trust me, not calling you out, just saying that this is what's happening and I'm trying to help the people that are in that bucket. Your brain's going to say that's happening to John and Susie down the street, but that's not happening in our relationship. Trust me, the statistics show otherwise. And if I were to follow you around on the day-to-day and actually track your movements and what's going on in your brain, the data would map just like this. Unless you're a conscious couple, in which case you are consciously tracking this. And trust me, that is a small circle. So with that being said, what can we do? If this is happening and it's actually happening at a very fast rate, and we are in relationships and we're trying to figure out how do we navigate, okay, if this is the case, or to the degree that it's the case and prevalent in my relationship currently, what can I do? How can we shift? How can we change? How can we evolve? And if you're not feeling safe in your relationship, that's going to be a pretty challenging barrier, but there's still hope. First of all, the first thing that I want to extend, right, the olive branch that I would extend to anyone, because I genuinely believe relationships are where so much growth can happen. And I think that there's so much gold in relationships for so many of us, is to take full ownership of the fact that where your belief system is, right? Take an audit. Do you believe that your time is more important than your partner's time? That's question number one. Question number two, and I want you to be real honest with yourself. How much are you taking full ownership of this quote unquote distribution of time, household chores, household stuff, etc.? And what I mean by full ownership, I mean not just the initial task, right? So like, for example, again, cooking dinner, or let's even use this example of getting the kids ready for school, or I don't know. Yeah, let's get the kids ready for bed, because I mentioned that earlier. There's three quote unquote steps that are happening there. There's the mental spark of like, oh, like we get home from work. Okay, the child needs to be in bed by, let's say, 7:15. Oh shoot, it's 6:00. We have to start getting the bathtub ready. We have to kind of reverse engineer. That's all of the like mental spark, cognitive load before actually the task is done. And most people are like, okay, yeah, and then the task gets done. No. There's a gap in between that most of us are missing. It's the planning. From the conception and that mental spark to the actual behavior happening, it is the invisible setup that happens. So, okay, what stuff do you have to have on the bath mat to make sure that the tub is good? What soap needs to go into the tub and be at the specific temperature? What towels do you need to have ready so that when it's coming out, right? And what maybe music do you have to put on your phone or whatever? Like all of that invisible setup. And then there's that execution, which is physically doing or executing on the task. And I would put in a fourth thing, which is all the cleanup after. Every task that you do, there's something that's involved with that. And full ownership is not, well, just doing the task. It is the mental spark. It is the preparation and planning of that, and the invisible setup and the work itself, and then the cleanup afterwards. So that's 5 different components that I'm mentioning. Is your partnership going through an audit of what is the concept of things that need to be done, or responsibilities that kind of come in when it comes to your relationship? Another good one is planning dates, right? What is the planning? What is the setup? And what is the execution? And are you taking 100% responsibility over that thing, right? So if you're Alan and I call it DRI, directly responsible individual. If I am DRI for, let's say, grocery procurement of our households, I am taking responsibility of all of those 5 steps, not just the let me go grocery shopping. So extending to everyone that's listening to this, there is a system, there is an approach to not only reevaluate the belief and where the shared belief or opposite belief is. There's an opportunity for ownership. There is a model called the concept planning and execution model, CPE model, that helps you understand if your relationship is going to fail long term, what you're not doing now. And again, I want to bring in hope, because hope is so important. There are people who do this successfully, consistently, and do have households that run very effectively with relationships that are in love. Although that's the statistical anomaly nowadays, it is increasing over time. And I think that that's a really exciting opportunity for all of us to really consider. So, Bianca, where do you want to take this episode? What are some questions, or do you have any questions? Like, I know this is a big topic that we went into, but it's a very sneaky, and again, just to be explicit, one of the sneaky reasons why relationship fails is because there's a mismatch of belief systems of the equality of one person's time. My time, I do not see as more important than my partner's time. I do not see that. We have a shared value in each other's time. Like that is a belief that we hold. Therefore, we're able to prevent our relationship from failing because of what that belief does for us.
I think we need to do a part 2 of this.
Ooh.
For people who are single and for people who are in relationships. So if you are single entering into a relationship, or if you are single, what are the values you need to identify within yourself? And then what do you need to look out for in whoever you end up dating? And then if you're in a relationship currently, how can you identify what those values are for you? Identify if they are mismatched with your partner, and then drive to 5 and find a solution so that it is more equitable. Not equal, equitable.
Big difference there, for sure.
This could be a 2-hour-long conversation, Emilia. I think we should cap it.
Oh my God. For sure. Yeah. Okay. Well, I appreciate this dialogue. I appreciate the listeners coming in here. And again, Bianca and I don't just work with one-on-one individuals. We work with teams. We work with couples. We work with like families and different dynamics. Yeah. So if this is something, not if, to the degree that you're willing to humbly admit that this is impacting you, we are here in support. We have resources. We have so many things that we can connect you to that will help you take the first baby step that helps you in your relationship, or you as a single individual prevent failure from happening in future relationships. Not because you're afraid of failure, but because you value your time and you understand the implications of getting into a relationship that doesn't value your time as equally as that person. So we're excited for you. There's lots of hope here. And if we can be hope merchants, I do think this world can be a better place. So that being said, my episode suggestion in closing is number 412. Being an adult doesn't mean you've grown. Shout out to all my women, children, and men, children, man-childs out there. Bianca, over to you.
I'm changing mine.
Okay.
430. Why? Why you're tolerating the asshole and how to break free.
I appreciate the change. That's a good one.
There's a lot of circumstances that can't be saved.
Yeah.
And a lot of people need to man up and woman up and leave.
Yeah.
It's just the truth. It's unfortunate. There is hope for some. There is not for others. And you will be okay no matter what.
Facts.
All right.
This is true.
We hope you enjoyed our spicy spice and our fire. We will see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.